All right, we're rolling. Looks good. YouTube looks good. Let's get everything rolling on TikTok, Insta. You already know what time it is. Yo, what's up, people? Welcome to another episode of the Meathead on the Mic podcast. It's your boy, IFBB PRO and today we're going to drive the point straight in. We're going to talk about dieting full versus dieting hungry. And this kind of might sound confusing at the beginning, right? But the way most people diet is they'll starve themselves. Like they'll like, okay, like what is it? Calories in, calories out? Sure. So I'm going to eat the least amount of calories that I could possibly survive on and hope for the best, which isn't the best or even the most sustainable way. And we're going to get into that. All right. So when you join, let me know how your day is going for sure. If you have any comments or questions, I'll do my best to answer them at the end of this episode. You know what time it is, people. Dieting full versus dieting hungry. What I think is actually right. And I'm going to be talking about some things that honestly, if you are doing them currently, you know that you might have to switch up your diet. What is up, Miss Ray Ray? Happy Tuesday. Winnipeg. Awesome. Love from Ontario. Toronto, you know what's up. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. All right. So, without wasting any time, I'll be diving into the podcast episode recording. You know how it is. You can ask questions, you can drop comments whenever you want, and at the end of the recording, which I'll let you guys and girls know, I will be answering as many questions as possible. So don't think I'm ignoring you. I'm just going through the podcast episode because we are recording in a little bit. But still, if something clicks your mind and it makes you want to ask a question, ask it. Even if you leave, I will answer it, and the full raw upload will go up on YouTube on Matt Butale at YouTube. All right, so hit that up. Okay, let's break this episode down in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yo, what's good, meatheads? Hope you're having an amazing day, and welcome to another episode of the Meathead on the Mic podcast. It's your returning champion, IFBB Pro, Matt Butale, coming at you with another topic. And today, okay, I'll be opening up your mind to the possibility that when you have time on your side, you can burn fat way more efficiently and keep it off permanently. Mainly, if you guessed in the title, dieting hungry versus dieting full. All right. I've noticed a lot of people that don't really know what to do when it comes to losing weight, especially if it's their first time burning fat. What they'll do is they'll understand, okay, well, it has something to do with my calories, right? And let me know if this is you guys and girls listening to this. It has something to do with my calories. And based off of that, I'm gonna, change my calories. I'm going to eat less, right? Which in theory, like that's what you need to do. Eat less, exercise more. But how little are you eating? And like how little should you be eating? I think that's the better question. How little should you be eating? Or how much should you be eating? Right? So that's something I find that most people struggle with. I see that time and time and again in the DMs. Matt, what should I do for a calorie deficit? So the answer, guys and girls, is this: a calorie deficit. First of all, I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to break down why it's important to even know about calories in the first place, and then talk about specifically what might be the caloric range that you need to, apply or, eat in. We'll say. All right. So number one, there are three ways we can change our body with food when it comes to calories: to grow, to stay the same, or to burn fat. Simple. And the fancy words for each of them: to grow is to be in a surplus, right? Calorie surplus, to eat more calories than you need to stay the same weight, right? So you'll grow. Second, we have a maintenance, caloric maintenance, which is simply put, you can tell by the word maintenance, it's going to help you maintain your current size, your weight. And then, last but not least, the most popular, or at least what we're going to be focusing on the most in this episode, is to lose fat, burn fat, the deficit, the calorie deficit. All right. So, again, surplus is for gaining, maintenance is for maintaining, and deficit is for burning fat. Okay. So, now that we understand that and that's out the way, we understand, okay, well, if I want to burn fat, I've got to be in a deficit, right? So, how many calories is a calorie deficit? That's a pretty open-ended question. And I know a lot of people that are beginning, often ask that question, but the answer is actually quite objective, but subjective in a way, because it's a it's a firm number, maybe a firm range, but outside of that firm range, guys and girls, it's so sort of subjective in the way that it applies only to you based off of your age, your height, your physical activity levels, so on and so forth. Like literally, so many other variables. It's not 100% rocket science, but I personally, for example, have a different calorie deficit number than you would, given that I do carry a lot more muscle. I'm a lot more physically active than the average person, so it's probably going to take me a lot less calories, right? It's going to take me a lot less calories to get a similar effect. For you, it might be a lot more calories given that you're not as active and you've been eating in such a calorie surplus for so long that even if you drop it just a little bit, you'll start to lose weight, right? So the number varies for everybody based off of your height, your age, your physical activity level, so many other variables. Okay. So there's no one size fits all or one number fits all in the sense of a calorie deficit. So that's one thing that I want you to understand if you want to burn fat and you don't know what to do when it comes to having a calorie deficit. Okay. So let's break it down. Okay, we understand a calorie deficit is calorie deficit. We need to be in that in order to burn fat. Well, also, you need to be exercising too, but that's besides the point because that's a no-brainer. And I'm just going to assume that we already understand that you need to be exercising while in a calorie deficit as well. Okay, you can definitely lose weight with just a calorie deficit, but that isn't the way to do it because again, there's losing weight and burning fat, which we're going to get into actually quite shortly. Okay, so losing weight. Think of weight. What weighs anything? Everything, mass, matter. Okay. That's weight. Water has weight. Fat has weight. Muscle has weight. Bones, right? That's matter. Bones have weight. There's bone density. Everything in your body, your organs, all of that has weight. Okay. But what we're going to be focusing on here when we say weight is water, fat, and muscle because those are the three variables we have the most control over. We don't really have much control over our bone density or how much our organs weigh. Okay, that's more or less genetic. So fat, water, and muscle. If you decide to go into calorie deficit and you don't exercise, or if you go into a calorie deficit and you're too far in, which means you're eating way too little, you risk only losing weight. And I know you're listening to this, you're like, "What? I risk only losing weight? Like that's a good thing, right? Like, I want to lose weight." Well, no. And here's why. Because when you lose weight, and again, as I said, weight is those three: muscle, water, and fat, emphasis on the muscle, it's not going to be good for you because if you lose a lot of muscle, you're going to feel more sluggish. On top of that, your metabolism is going to go further out of whack because the more muscle you have on your body, on your frame, the higher your caloric, we'll say, expenditure can be when you're resting. Expenditure being the amount of calories you burn. So you burn more calories in a rested state by having more muscle on your frame. It ties into what I said earlier on, guys and girls, about me having a different calorie deficit number. It's mainly different because of the amount of muscle that I carry, and of course, my physical activity level, which we're going to assume that we're already physically active in this diet change and a calorie deficit. For me, it's different mainly because of the amount of muscle that I've accumulated. If I decided to do a heavy cut and lose a lot of muscle, then my body won't be as efficient as burning calories because, again, to have muscles on your body is more calorically expensive than to have fat on your body, which is why you see leaner or slim people get away with eating, burgers, pizza, and all that stuff far more than you'll see an obese person get away with it. And when I say get away, I mean not have adverse effects or like instantly gaining weight, instantly bloating. It still can happen, but it's far less likely given that the person's body metabolizes food and or calories more efficiently because they have more muscle on their frame. So the whole idea here is not only just the losing like the scale, like you don't want to just look at the scale and watch that weight go down. That might give you a little kick, but once you hit that bottom, right, and you say crash dieted or you ate as little as possible to lose as much weight as possible to get to that certain outcome, once you hit that weight, you're going to feel drained. You're going to look like a literally like a shell of yourself. Your face is going to sink in. You're not going to feel good. You're going to feel weak, lethargic, tired all the time. Your metabolism will be out of whack. Your hormones will be out of whack. It's literally a recipe for disaster and something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. So, just losing weight alone, guys and girls, to recap, losing weight being muscle, water, and fat, losing that all alone together is not ideal. What you want to do is burn fat. Okay. You're going to drop some water weight, which is fine. It's going to give you more of a leaner look. But primarily, you only want to burn fat and preserve your muscle, if not build muscle in the phase of being in a calorie deficit. So that might sound confusing. Your body's losing weight, but you're keeping and growing muscle. What is that? Like, that sounds like some magic, right? Well, it's not that difficult. And I've talked about this several times. We're on episode 105 here on the Meathead on the Mic podcast, and I've spoke about it a couple of times. right? So how would we go on about keeping our muscle, gaining our muscle as we come down in a calorie deficit? Like, how is that done? Because that's what you want to do. You want to be able to keep your muscle so that not only is it easier for your body to burn more calories and metabolize, but you feel better, you look better, you can function better because you're stronger, you have more muscle. Like the benefits go on. They properly negate every other bad thing that I talked about when it's compared to simply just losing weight, which includes losing muscle. Okay, so like how do you maintain, how do you grow, how do you keep the muscle on your body as you focus on burning fat while also being in a calorie deficit? That may be your question. And the answer to that question is quite simple. One of them we already talked about that we're going to assume that we're already doing, okay? And that is training. You've got to be doing some form of weight training. Cardio and endurance also would be a really, really important factor for you, especially if you're overweight, like really overweight. Regardless, I would recommend it. Cardio is always good, but primarily weightlifting because, as we know, lifting weights is going to build the muscle, right? Builds muscle. Lifting weight builds muscle. That's one part. All right. And not just lifting it, but challenging yourself and actually trying, like doing just enough for it to be difficult, but just enough for you to actually complete it every time that you visit, probably say between 2 to 4 times a week. Let's be modest. Okay. Like you're getting back into this, you're starting up 2 to 4 times a week is a great point to start. Even to just you could lose a lot of weight actually, going from 0 to 2 to 4 times a week, training as hard as you possibly can. Yeah. So there's that, the muscle, you're building it. But what else? Like what else? Because isn't it tricky that your body's losing mass in the sense of like burning fat? How are you growing or keeping any tissue? Well, that ties into your protein intake now. For every gram of protein, you should be, or sorry, for every pound of body weight, you should be consuming a gram of protein. So, for example, if you're like 230 pounds, bare minimum 230. Maybe if you slip up a couple days, 210 grams of protein. World's it's not going to end, right? 210 to 230 grams of protein if you weigh 230 pounds and you are in a calorie deficit. That means you alter your calories so that you're in a deficit, which means less calories than you need to maintain your weight, as we talked about at the beginning of this episode, while also keeping your protein just that high. So it's about balancing the macronutrients and then training really hard or as hard as you can with weights so that you can actually tear up the muscle fibers and then they'll heal. And then with the protein, they'll be able to grow or you can maintain the muscle tissue as you come down, which is the goal because that's going to keep the weight off, not just get it off, but keep it off. As opposed to if you were to do a crash diet where you were just to literally survive on food, like trying to eat just enough, you know what I mean? And starving all the time, you may lose weight. And when I say weight, we already talked about that. You know what I mean? Muscle, fat, water, way quickly, like way more quick. But you're going to get to the rock bottom. You're going to be weaker. Digestive system, hormones, everything's going to be out of whack. So it's super important that you apply what I just said about protein and being in a calorie deficit, as well as training as hard as you possibly can, as consistently as you possibly can as well. All right. It's like it's no secret. Everyone wants to look better. Right. And unfortunately, most of us promised ourselves, and this might be you, a summer body that you didn't get. And you didn't commit to creating it because you may not have known what to do, which is fine. Okay. So we talked about a calorie deficit, but let's talk about dieting in terms of not feeling like you're dieting and then feeling like you're dieting, but still getting the results. So this is, I would say, for the okay, when you don't understand this, it's super tricky, but once you get it, you get it. All right. So what I'm talking about now is food, I'll say volume, just to make it super simple. Food volume. Okay. Let's look at, for example, Oreos. All right, let's look at some Oreos here. We got one Oreos, say 50 something, 53 calories. All right, that's one Oreo. Okay. If you have 10 Oreos, how many calories is that? Right? It's 530 calories, right? And that's 10 Oreos. 10 Oreos don't, it's not really a lot. It's like a sleeve and a little bit, maybe a sleeve in the jumbo pack. So you could probably go down and scarf 530 calories of Oreo before you even know, right? But guys and girls, there is something called food volume. 530 calories can make up a different version of macronutrients. And when I say macronutrients, I'm speaking of protein, carbs, and fats if you consume it with different food volume or different food selection. Even food selection, I think, is a better word. Food selection, yeah, we'll stick with that. So food selection, if you have 530 calories left to spare in your day in your caloric surplus, this is why you shouldn't eat the Oreos. The reason why is, number one, it's easy to eat. It's so quick. By the time you eat it, and the volume too as well, it's so small in your stomach. You're actually likely to feel hungry later on. As opposed to 530 calories, you can eat close to 300 grams of rice and more than 6 ounces of meat with a lot of veggies and still not even hit 530 calories. But the difference is, not only does it have a better macronutrient spread, not only does it have more vitamins and micronutrients, but it also has more food volume, which means that you will be eating less calories. But in terms of food volume, it will actually be more food. Does that make sense? Like, it could literally weigh more than the Oreos, but because it has less calories, you're literally gonna burn more fat than if you were to eat the Oreos. Does that make sense? So, selection of calories is the most important thing outside of, being responsible with how far in you're going with your calorie deficit, right? Not dieting too aggressively, which means not keeping your calorie deficit numbers so low to the point where you're always starving, mixed with selecting foods that are nutrient dense, okay, that have good macronutrient spreads to help you hit that protein goal, which is going to help you keep that muscle, which is going to help you actually permanently keep the fat off and have your body operate better, right? Selecting those foods as opposed to like chips, as opposed to donuts and other things that have super super high calories but could fit in the palm of your hand. Because that's like what makes you feel hungry. Like you'll feel like, oh, 2,500 calories is so low. It's not really low. It's that the foods you're choosing are really, really, they weigh nothing, but they have all the calories in the world, which is why you feel like there's nothing in your stomach. Does that make sense? You want to pick foods that are nutrient dense, that are heavy, all right? And that will fill you up, but also that are lower in calories than what you might otherwise eat, which technically means just cooking, meals at home because that's like 90% of the meals you're going to cook at home. They that's just what it is, right? So that's the sort of dilemma or the confusing part about this that most people don't understand. They think that because I'm looking at a bowl of rice, 8 ounces of meat, or whatever it is, and I'm kind of over exaggerating here, but a big bowl of rice, 8 ounces of meat, and a lot of veggies, and that bowl is really big, that because that bowl is big, it's going to get me fat. No, it's all about the calories. You can eat more calories in Oreo form than you ever could in whole food, which means that if you ate more whole food and respected your caloric requirements, it would be easier for you to feel full and you'll be able to get more results because of that. Because you won't be starving all the time. You won't be craving food all the time because you will actually be full. And another thing, guys and girls, hydration. Water is super important. And you can also leverage water in your benefit if you are also eating whole foods that are nutrient dense because the water not only is going to hydrate you, okay, and not only will you be able to fully use the water because of the micronutrients in the foods that you're consuming, but it will also act like a placeholder. And if you ever do feel like you're a little bit more hungry, which is kind of natural at times, especially after the gym, that water will help you suppress your appetite. Okay. So these are some hacks that I'm sharing with you that I use with myself and my best clients. All right. So take use of these things. So again, guys and girls, dieting full versus dieting hungry. You don't have to, you shouldn't be hungry when you're dieting. You should not. And if you are, it's because your food selection sucks. I'm just going to break it down, right? Select like fish, whole food, right? Chicken, whole food, beef, whole food, rice, pasta, all these things that you think are actually bad. Not, I know the meats aren't bad, but you think rice and pasta is bad. It's not. Honestly, get it in a good portion and you're fine. But make sure that it stays at or under your caloric requirements and that you meet your protein requirements every single day. It's literally just as confusing as it is easy, but once you understand it and it clicks, right? And if you have, trouble understanding it and you need to learn it or you've tried to learn it online but you still kind of don't get it, then that's your sign. It's time for you to get an accountability buddy, somebody that knows this. Maybe a friend, maybe a coach, maybe a mentor, somebody to help you actually do this in a way where you can lose, literally burn fat and lose it, keep it off permanently, keeping your muscle and growing it in that stage of getting leaner while also not suffering and feeling so fucking hungry all the goddamn time. Because that's the reason why most people stop dieting. If you know, they will eat foods that have like so many calories. So, and first of all, it's not even always foods. Most of the time, it's even condiments, right? Like people don't think of the dressings, people don't think of the ketchup and the mustard and all that stuff, and the barbecue sauce. Like people don't really take in those things, right? Like jelly, peanut butter. People don't think about these things, but they're really, really high in calories, and it's very easy to overeat those things and screw up your progress. You've got to select foods that are more nutrient dense, that are packed with calories, that weigh more because they have more volume, and they'll fill you out in your stomach. Also, by being on with your hydration, it's only another plus because then you can leverage the feeling, okay, of being full, right? That's it. That's all. Hope you like this episode, guys and girls. I hope I was able to deliver a valuable experience to you guys and girls today. All right. Also, I want to let you know if you want to lose 25 pounds and have me as a head coach in the Natural Nomad Academy, feel free to give me a DM on whichever social media platform you are listening to this on or watching this on, and I'll see if you'll be a good fit. All right. Let's embrace your inner meathead together. It's been nice chatting. Hope you like what today's topic was about. IFBB Pro Matt Butale signing out. Boom. All right, people. All right, people. That's it. That's all. Episode is super, super informative. I think this was a really, really, really good episode and something that I might refer to a lot in future episodes because I think I explained it very well. Um, let's see. Shout out to everybody that joined. Oh, Derek, he's got a question. Derek says, does a high sodium intake keep you from burning fat, or is it just going to cause extra water weight? So, high sodium intake, depending on what kind of, so if you're an athlete, like let's just, there's two spectrums here that I'll just talk about really quickly. If you're a high caliber athlete and like you're sweating a lot, you're burning a bunch of calories, things like that, having a high sodium intake is beneficial because you're sweating out so much sodium, right? Like think of sweat, think of tears, if you've ever tasted them, by accident or not by accident, I'm not going to dive too deep into that. You can taste the salt, right? So if you're really sweating all the time, you're training as hard as possible, and this is something that this has happened to me. I would literally have to take tablespoons of salt before my workout to make sure that my electrolytes were balanced and had enough sodium. However, on the opposite side, on the complete other end, if you are just beginning your weight loss journey, you want to have your sodium in control. You don't want to have too much. It's not going to make you gain fat because, as I said, and the rule will always stand. Nobody, and how do we say this? I've said this before. Uh, uh, the laws of thermodynamics apply to everybody. So thermodynamics means just calories that you eat and calories that you burn. So that's thermodynamics. The amount of, or the law of thermodynamics applies to everybody. So ultimately it's going to be your calories that's going to be responsible for you putting on more fat or burning off the fat in conjunction with how much exercise you're actually doing on a consistent basis. So that's the primary thing. If we're talking about water weight here, you could retain some water weight with sodium. You could, but it's not anything to worry about. Especially if you've got your calories under control and you're training as hard as you can, as consistently as you can. That would be the last thing I'd be worried about. But definitely, it can happen. You can retain some water with a high sodium in your diet. But again, too much of anything is bad, and we should all know that by now, right? So to have everything balanced is key unless you are on the other end of the spectrum where you're overperforming or you're doing something that is far from average. You're not burning fat like you're trying to be the best in the world at a sport or something, which is completely different. But that's a great question, Derek. I really do appreciate you asking that question, man. Lizzie, what's good? Love being in the head. Cheers. That's all good. It's on Apple Podcast and Spotify if you want to check that out. What's your height and weight? What's the best and worst asset body wise? That's a personal question. I mean, you're asking me like, my stats. I think I've talked about it in a couple of posts like years ago. So I don't know. Height 5'9". At least that's what my driver's license says. And currently I'm about 194. I'm slowly getting back into a reverse diet. So I'm slowly going to be gaining weight as the weeks go on. I'll probably cap off at about 210 or 220, depending on how long I decide to stay in my off season. But that's pretty much it. And my best worst asset body wise, I wouldn't know. I think everything is the worst asset, which is why I'm in the gym 6 days a week. So no, but to be modest, best asset, my legs are my strongest body part. Like physically, so in the gym, I can lift the most with that, of course, as we should be able to. But I think I like my overall frame. I could say my silhouette is good. I think I like my lats the way they pop out, my shoulders, and then my legs the way that pops out. So I actually do love my physique. It's just not done yet. I have to go back and always work on it. I love doing that. That's what we do, right? All right. So I got another question here on TikTok real quick before I run out because I'm gonna be going to the gym literally like right after this. Justin says, Matt Butala, what are your tips to gain muscle? I am currently on a push pull leg split at 17 years old, about 160 pounds. That's awesome, bro. 17 years old, 160. I was sort of the same weight. I don't know if we're the same height at that age. I was the same weight. So tips to gain muscle, dude. Nutrition, bro. Train as hard as you want. You're 17. Do whatever the fuck you want as long as you're training every muscle group at least twice. The split doesn't really matter that much as long as you're executing the form correctly and pushing yourself as hard as you need to push yourself. The number one thing for building muscle, okay, is the protein. 1 gram per pound bare minimum. And if you're bulking, I would honestly, depending on how carb sensitive you are, increase the carbs a little bit, or focus a little bit on just increasing the protein. But protein or carbs, I'd increase one or the other to give myself an extra surplus, but a surplus no more than 200 calories. It's not really not, you will put on a lot of fat if you do more than 200 calories in a surplus, especially if you're natural, right? So take that from me, man. Appreciate the follow, Kelly, Sash. But Justin, great question. Appreciate it. Thank you for the compliments. Lizzie. So Lizzie says, can you please do Q&A one? Yeah, you know what? Shit. I haven't done a Q&A in literally like a year. So I think I usually leave that to my exclusive communities, but yeah, honestly, if people ask for it enough, then I'll do it because there's no reason not to. All right. So people, that's it. That's all. No more questions here today. I literally got to run. We're at 1:45 over here, Eastern Standard Time in the afternoon. Peace, love, motherfucking protein. Lizzie, I appreciate you. Zach, everybody, I appreciate you. Thank you for joining. Tune in to Apple Podcasts, Meathead on the Mic, or Spotify, Meathead on the Mic, if you want to tune into these episodes. And if you want the full raw, uncut episodes, go to YouTube, Matt Butale, MATT space BUTALE, to hear some of the answers and responses I had to the questions that you guys and girls had to ask me that won't be included in the Apple podcast or in the Spotify versions of the recording. All right. So peace, love, and protein. We'll be chatting again. You know what time it is. We are out. Boom.